Wow. A fiery keynote from Miss. Really a fiery keynote over here. Thank you, Miss Dr. Insinyur Ingriani Lim. So, access to IT education is very vast. Be a developer that creates a problem-solving innovation, not just with a basic skill, but with computational thinking, in-depth programming paradigm, and also passion. So, give a second applause for Miss Ingriani Lim. So, without further ado, the second keynote will be delivered by Mr. Fauzan Emerling. Who is Mr. Fauzan Emerling? Mr. Fauzan is a mobile product engineering lead at Gojek and a co-founder from the PyCon Indonesia, Yogyakarta. Please welcome Mr. Fauzan. The stage is yours.
Okay, good morning everyone. It feels so good for me to be here again. I last spoke at PyCon 2 years ago, the first PyCon in Surabaya. So now I'm back to Surabaya and speaking at PyCon again. A while back, the committee asked me to be one of the keynote speakers. The goal is to inspire. So here's what I'm going to share to you today. Hope it can inspire you to use Python even more and more. Okay, so my talk today is on how Python changed my life. A little bit about me. I started coding in the year 2000. Yeah, I'm kind of old, so yeah. I'm a Python user since 2010. Before that, I was not enlightened, but I was enlightened in 2010. I'm Femerling on Twitter. If you want to see my Python rants or stuffs about startups, you can follow me. Currently, I'm mobile product engineering lead at Gojek. I know this is not really related to Python. I deal with Kotlin on a day-to-day basis. But outside of work, I do a lot of Python for my pet projects on weekends or sometimes at night, and sometimes for like crypto trading. I'm an engineer by heart. I love building things. I still remember the first time I started building with Lego blocks. Up until now, I write applications that give real impacts to human life, so I like building things. I joined Python ID in 2013. I think it's one of that decisions that makes me feel happy about. I get to meet a lot of interesting people. I get to share a lot and learn a lot as well. When I moved to Jogja in 2016, I co-founded Python ID Jogja with Ismail Sunni and Mirza Arson. We see that it's a city filled with a lot of Python engineers, but there's no community, so we started building that. Now I'm not really active in organizing, but now we have Sigit here, who is very active and in replacing me in hosting the meetups. He's also going to have a talk today. Try visiting his talk also, it's going to be very interesting. And I'm married with 3 kids. My wife is over there. I think she's very proud seeing me now. She's never been to a conference before, so this is her first time. Okay, so let's start, yeah. So I start with the dark ages, yeah. This is my pre-Python journey. So my journey started back in 1999. So why do I say it started back in 1999? Because yeah, the first time I used the internet. Back then, like not a lot of people have internet. I started going to one of those warnets, right? You know what I do? MIRC, right? Chatting with people from all over the world. That's how everybody got hooked. Yeah? You have no Google, only Yahoo back then for search engine. So my first code was HTML. I use it to write my web page in GeoCities. Anybody has the GeoCities? Yeah, not much. We're old. If you still have it, please give applause for yourself. Okay, so and then I read some VB6 books. If you don't know or you're too young to know, VB6 is Visual Basic 6. So I have a relative who's an MCP for VB. I visited his house and he has a lot of books and he said, hey, you're starting to write codes in HTML. Why don't you try reading this? This is like a form of easy programming. I try reading it all, doesn't make sense anymore for me, so yeah, that's that. And then I got into university in 2002. I got my first intro to programming in C. Yeah, finally I had some sense of programming. But I got limited resources to learn. Back then, I only have 3 resources to learn. 1, the lectures and the lab guys. 2, books. 3, the seniors, if they have time to teach me. If not, then yeah, I have to try everything out by myself. I spent endless nights trying this and that. Why does this not work, right? Sometimes cannot sleep because of the task that I have to do. So I got a lot of programming concepts, but didn't quite get how to apply them in real cases. Maybe if I joined one of Bu Inge's classes, I would understand them better. But yeah, some of my lecturers are just like graduating and don't really understand how to teach, so I don't really make sense on the things that I got. So if you know what haunted my dreams, Borland C++ interface. This haunted my dreams for years, you know. I have to do a lot of programming in this one. You might not see this anymore. I don't know, maybe you still use this or not, but yeah, this was the first IDE that I used. I think this is as old as Vim, but I still use Vim though, by the way, and I know how to exit Vim, yeah. And then came life after C. First intro to visual programming was VB6. Finally, the books that I read made sense, right? I can use it faster than my friends because, yeah, I read those books earlier and I have those books to learn. And those were good books as well, so yeah, I got an unfair advantage. Next, yeah, the one and only, you have to learn Java, right? But what's funny is I got this in a course called web programming. So not object-oriented programming, but it's our web programming, making Java applets for making games and stuff. And I was like, why is this in web programming? I don't really use this in web anyway, right? Yeah, and this is the beginning of web applications, but then it became JSP and it made more sense for me to do web programming with JSP instead of using Java applet. And I was like, okay, bye-bye Java applet, I'm doing JSP for now. C++ is there as well. I have to learn object-oriented programming. I got this a bit later because I don't really have good grades. So I got it in later parts, but thanks to this course, I finally understand what OOP is. And it was a good course. It's very valuable for me going forward as well. But then came the long-standing language of web programming. Anybody knows? Any guess? You guessed it right. So this is the mother language, yeah? Don't make fun of PHP. I bet every one of you here have tried PHP at least once. I bet some of you even made money using PHP for the first time. So don't make fun of PHP. I don't really use it a lot, but this was one of a kind at its time. Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. Why? First, it was hype, you know. Back then, it wasn't the time yet when people say it's hype-driven development. I mean, it was hype. I feel like I was a part of something. Before I was using C, and I was like, how am I going to use C in web programming, right? Like, not a lot of people have that. And it's my first interpreted language. Back then, computers were like really slow. Now, how many gigs of RAM do you have? 8, 16? Back then, I only have 128 megabytes, right? So you don't really have a lot of memory available. So when you have to compile, plus the processor was, I remember that was Pentium 4 in the beginning when I started using it. It was really slow when you have to compile. So with interpreted language, it's very convenient for me. I type something, I save it, refresh, that's it. It appears, right? So I loved it a lot. And then I finally found dynamic typing. Yeah. Bu Inge mentioned about dynamic typing. This is preference. Yeah. I personally prefer dynamic typing to save up my cognitive load bandwidth. So with dynamic typing, I feel at home. Yeah, you can debate me on this one, but it's so liberating for me. Yeah, I know it's not safe, but there is this thing that you can do to make sure it's safe. It's called testing, automated testing, right? So you write good tests, you're safe in this one. Also, it's light on the PC, right? Running a PHP server compared to JSP or .NET for limited resources that I have, yeah, I definitely enjoy it more. And plenty of reference on the web. Unlike before, the web is already developing a lot and more docs are there. A lot of people are using it also in university, so I can ask more people compared to previously. And this is important, plenty of cheap hosting support. If you look at the conditions right now, you have cloud instance for $5 and stuff like that, right? Back then, a VPS is like 500,000 rupiah and stuff for 1 month, while a cheap shared hosting with 10 megabytes of space, yeah, you heard it right, 10 megabytes, that's like 150,000 per year. So that's way cheaper, and you can get your codes to production. So that's why I enjoy it a lot. But I still didn't understand much of the programming concept that I was taught. The language did not inspire me to get better. I mean, like, if you see PHP back then, it's so messed up. I have to admit it. It was messed up. It's way better now, but back then it was messed up. And since I was around in IRC, right? You know I was using MIRC. Up until now, I still use it. The community was like really harsh if you ask questions on the channel. Sometimes if it's a very basic question, they're gonna mock you and do things like that, which is not cool, right? I mean, like, you're learning, you're looking for as many sources as possible. Sometimes you still gotta ask people, right? Not really cool for me. And I didn't find any good philosophy. Back then, I don't see any good coding standards and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't develop that much. However, it worked. I delivered production codes sooner than the other languages. I graduated with a thesis with PHP program, so I cannot say bad things about it because yeah, it helps me do a lot of things. And I started making money with it, right? So I created a service company making websites back then, right? Sometimes also makes other people's thesis from this company. So I get money out of making other people's program, mostly with PHP. Now, it's the age of the Enlightenment. My Python discovery years, yeah. And pay close attention because this hopefully will change the way you see a language. So here's the story. So I told you before that I started that service company, right? So back in 2010, my service company got a contract with an Austrian agency. So we could become like a subcontractor for their projects. The initial test was in PHP, of course. I was using that. We're using Zen framework, and yeah, we easily passed that one because use it every day. However, they're switching to Google App Engine. So back then it was freshly released. They only offer support for Java and Python because it's still experimental. And they want to use Python, right? My first reaction was like, I'm supposed to use a snake? Right? No kidding. So, but yeah, after looking at the language, what's the right way to say this? I don't really have this in English. Saya kepatil eh. The simplicity got me very well. It's very simple, I can understand it as soon as I see it. And then it was the easiest learning I did in years. Previously, I need about 2 weeks to 1 month to learn a new language. This one I pick up in less than a week. Very easy to understand. And then I got more products delivered. So within that less than a week time, I spent it like 3 or 4 days. And then at another 2 days, I already delivered production codes with Python. So I understand a lot about the programming concepts and finally understood most of the things. Like linked list, why do you need linked list, right? Before I don't understand. But once you started to use list comprehensions and all those list operations, the collections that they have in Python made more sense for me for a lot of the concept that was taught before. It was easier. It's like, oh, so this is how I should be using this, right? So that's why it's enlightening. And I am inspired to learn even more things because I know that dynamic typing is not safe. I learned testing. I learned about security, secure coding and stuff like that. I learned about a lot of things that previously I don't want to learn when I was using PHP. I even tried to make my own web framework. I don't know whether anyone still remembered that one. I used to present that at one of the meetups. I made a framework based on Flask as well because I was like feeling challenged that the Ruby community have Rails. We have Django, but I don't think it's the same. So I tried making my own framework based on that. And it didn't stop there. First that I see is the community is very welcoming in IRC. There are a bunch of comedians, I should tell you. Try making them a joke like, hey, I made a very effective website. It loads in a very fast time. You open, and it's just blank. It's just the backend using Python, but it's very efficient, right? It's loading it very fast. Of course, it's blank. You don't have to load anything. Right? Things like that they share. So they have a lot of comedians there. And then the standard library is something that I really adore from Python. In other languages, most of the time you have to add extra dependencies to get other functions, even for an HTTP server, something like that I use a lot. In Python, it comes batteries included, so it's all there. You don't really have to look much. I don't really use a lot of extra dependencies in my projects because of this as well. And docs and tutorials are everywhere, and they're well written mostly. Yeah. And also the BDFL was cool and inspiring. I still remember seeing my first Guido video on YouTube explaining the Google App Engine. He explained it in a way that's different than the other videos that I've seen before. He explained the thought process and things like that. So I kind of understand how to approach the language that way. So the BDFL is also one of the factors that keeps me in the community. And then I also started using the way I approach the language simplicity in life. So not just in coding, but also in life. This was my standard question. Can I make it simpler? Right? This is what you should do. Man. Like a lot of people try to complicate things when you should actually be making things more simple. So this is what I always ask. Even you can ask my wife there. I mean, like I always say, like, can you make it simpler? That's a question that I ask a lot to her as well. Okay, so language inspired me in my life. I was enlightened. Yeah. So not just only in my work, but also in life. So what changed, right? The question. After I find this language, what changed? First thing that's very obvious is career jump. So I told you that I had that service company, but that service company is actually a side job, so it's a work that I did after work. So I mainly work as an IT auditor back then, because I don't really like the corporate IT stuff. I think it's boring. Sorry for the corporate guys, but I think it's boring. I don't really like it, so I prefer doing web programming mostly. And non-corporate IT jobs back then wasn't enough to support family, so I work as an IT auditor. So I rant about people making programs, right? I think those are boring technologies, and I spend my days ranting about what they make as an IT auditor. So after I find Python, I won a prize in a hackathon. I see one of my old friends from the hackathon here, Lingom is here. Yeah. So I won a prize, and it exposed me to big startup companies. Back then, it was the fall of Yahoo Indonesia, right? And then the start of new other startups. Because I won, I get to have an interview with Ice House, if you have heard of it. It's a software house. Now it's more like a university. People go there, they learn. After that, they go to all the big unicorns, right? So we call it as an Ice House University now. So I finally decided to take the leap. I changed my career completely. I was already a manager, actually, in the IT auditing. So I had to go back to an engineer, doing all the hard work, all the hard stuff, getting things dirty again. But I never regretted the decision. It was one of the best decisions I've taken, and also I'm lucky enough to have a wife that supports me to do that. It's not easy to switch jobs like that. Right? Now I've been with Ice House, I've been with Traveloka, I've been with Coral. It's just a short-lived startup. I've been with Prism, I've done some stuff at Metrans, and now I'm at Gojek, trying to solve your everyday problems. Yeah. So I also discovered the Zen of Python. And it really changed the way I approach my codes and affected my codes in other languages too. I write codes I can look back and be proud of. Like back then, before I know the Zen of Python, I was like, okay, I just write my codes, it solved the thing, that's it. Now, I see my codes back from 2010, 2011, 2012. It's like, what the hell was I thinking? It's not something I would be proud of if you see it. And then it built my pragmatism as well. So before I was like, it has to go this way, this way, this way. Sometimes it doesn't work, gives me more headaches. Now it's more, if it works, it works. That's the solution, that's what I'm going for. That's the first thing that I'm going to do. So my end goal will always be, how can I deliver this in the least painful way? But it should solve the problem. The key is it should solve the problem as well. Because like what Buinga said before, right? Computer science or software engineering, it's all about solving problems. So be pragmatic in it. And then all other language learning became easier. Once you discover the Zen of Python, you understand what it means. It applies to all language, actually. So when you learn the other languages, it becomes easier for you. If you don't know the Zen of Python, it's this. Beautiful is better than ugly. Explicit is better than implicit. Simple is better than complex. Complex is better than complicated. Flat is better than nested. Sparse is better than dense. Readability counts. Special cases are special enough to break the rules, although practicality beats purity. Error should never pass silently unless explicitly silenced. In the face of ambiguity, refuse the temptation to guess. There should be one and preferably only one obvious way to do it. Although that way may not be obvious at first unless you're Dutch. You know who's Dutch, right? Guido is. So yeah. Now is better than never, although never is often better than right now. If the implementation is hard to explain, it's a bad idea. If the implementation is easy to explain, it may be a good idea. This is actually my favorite part. So if you cannot explain it easily, maybe that's not a good idea. I mean, like, you should try rethinking it until it's easier for other people to understand. And namespaces are one honking great idea. Let's do more of those. Yeah, I still use this even in Kotlin. I make fun of the namespaces as well with my team to have fun. So if you want to see more, just do this in your terminal, right? It's there. So outside of coding, what does Python taught me? I say that it changed my life, right? So what does it taught me? First of all, it taught me to work better within a team. I'll have another slide after this, right? It taught me to manage people around me. It taught me to manage expectations of stakeholders. It taught me to create a safe engineering environment. It taught me to have a work-life balance, something that's very hard to do if you're a software engineer, especially in a startup environment where you have a lot of pressure to do things faster and things like that. And I have more time with my family. Okay. How is that possible? First, by trying to simplify things, you try to make things easier for people around you. Thus, you work better with your team, right? Second, by being simple, you can do things faster and have more time to yourself. You can use this for learning. You can use this to improve your codes. See again whether there are things that you can improve. Most of the time, you don't have this because you do it longer. And then by exposing your views, you become more readable. People around you can collaborate easier. Why do I say that you're exposing your view? By having simpler codes, people understand it better. People understand how you think, and they know what to expect when you're writing codes. This is important in a team environment. Also, by being explicit, you manage expectation better. You have to be explicit in whatever you write. Use good namings, use documentations if possible, so people understand. They know what to expect, right? And then, this is very important. A lot of companies fail in this one. In several companies that I work for, when you make a mistake, when you make an error, it's considered a sin. Yeah, they might say, yeah, it's okay to make mistakes, but we'll remember it until the end of your life, right? That happens a lot. But I make sure now in my team that when you make an error, you learn from it, and I'm not going to remember it again unless you do it again. So as long as you don't do it again, I'm not going to remember it. Just make sure that you learn and you don't do it again. This is important to create a safe engineering culture. We are human and we make mistakes. We just need to remember that when we make mistakes, we don't repeat it again. That should be the safe engineering culture that you should adopt. And that should also something that you should promote. And then, by refusing to guess things, you rely on data to make better decisions. I had this one startup that I know in Jogja, quite big. There's this one meeting that one of the guys there told me. They're going to make an ad. And in the ad, it's a picture of a woman holding a phone, right? The phone was a bit tilted. And then one of the guys in the meeting said, hey, that phone is tilted, it doesn't look good. The other guy said, do you have any data to back that? If not, shut up. Right? I mean, like, don't guess. If you rely on data, it would be better. That's why it's always better to not guess. You have assumptions, but you have to back it up with the data that you have. And then by ensuring we do things better in shorter time, we maintain our competitive advantage. When you're in a fast-paced world right now, you have to make sure that you're doing things faster. So since my learning improved, yeah, I don't really have a lot of time, but yeah, I learned a lot of things faster. So mobile app development, yeah, piece of cake after that. I learned both iOS and Android in 3 weeks, started writing production codes after that. I built better backends after I used Python. I understand more on the concepts and stuff like that. I learned how to build adaptive codes. This is very important because the code is based on your assumptions right now, right? But in the future, it might be changed. If your code is not adaptive, people need to make a mess out of your code and write something new. But if you build adaptive codes, in the future, people can write on top of your codes and make it better. And then I learned to see the beauty in other languages. I mean, like, I know that Python, I love Python, but I know that it has limitations. And other languages have better limitations. An example, I don't like how Lambda is being used in Python. Anybody likes how Lambda is used in Python? I don't think a lot of people like that. But have you ever seen, say, using Lambda in Kotlin? Man, it's very elegant, very nice to use. So things like that. You need to be able to see what other language is better, not just seeing what Python is good at, right? So I also learned more on DevOps. When you started going bigger, this will be a problem. I understand why Buinga put this in the slide as well, because it's a big problem once you start to scale up. And then I learned how to build a startup. It's full of pain. You can check my tweets on this one. I had a very long thread on this one, full of lessons as well. And then learning become not just a habit, but it's a need. Just like coming to this conference is like to fulfill my need to learn, right? I'm going to learn from every one of you. Every day I learn from everyone at work, even learn from my kids as well. So it becomes a need. So how does it relate to my current job? I am currently leading teams making mobile products, right? No Python related, but how I use it, how I approach simplicity helps me a lot. And I'm also helped by Gojek's culture. I mean, like, if it works, you can have your own autonomy in your team. And how's that related to today's talk? One, the habit to making simplified solutions help me in trying to give ease to users. So the easier it is for the users to use it, the simpler it is, the better it is for them. Right? Python advocates that. And then the habit of using Python's data structures help me in using data structures in other languages as well. So when you read my codes in Kotlin, it's kind of like reading Python, but in a Kotlin way. So yeah. And then all the backend learning that I did in Python. I was a heavy backend engineer for a couple of years before finally moving back again to mobile engineering. It helps me with dealing with various backends. You'll never know what other people are thinking, right? But if you have that learning that you have, it will help you a lot. And also, I can provide better inputs. Like a lot of engineers, they have good backend experience only for web-based applications, and mobile is a whole different beast. Okay, time's up. And yeah, most importantly, Python taught me how to write meaningful codes for other engineers to express ideas, right? So you know this guy, right? Yeah. In reality, programming languages are how programmers express and communicate ideas. And the audience of those ideas are other programmers, not computers. So computers will understand whatever you write, right? They're going to do it the same way. But you need to write your codes well because you want other engineers to read and understand your ideas and how you can express it well. And, okay, this is the last slide, I promise. 1 minute. Community contribution. So I joined Python ID in 2013. I felt the need to give back to the community that already gave much to me because Python is community driven, right? And I get a lot from it, so I decided that I should give back. So then I founded the Python ID Jogja to grow the community. Thanks Sigit for continuing that. I don't really active in hosting meetups anymore, but I still contribute as speakers. I've been speaking quite a lot lately, actually. Yeah, I'm like the bumper speaker. No one else is available, Mas Fauzan. No one else is available, Mas Eko is here as well. So yeah. Python ID welcomes you in our community events in many cities, Telegram channels, Slack. If you want to meet Mimin Galak, go to Telegram. She's there. Gonna be very harsh on you. If you can, contribute to the Python repo. I wish I can if I have time. Provide good package in PyPI. I wrote some already. Donate to Python communities if you can. And give back, share, grow together, and inspire others. So when you feel that it is good, just do that. Okay? So, last but not least, thank you, Python.